Okay, so last week we were in chapter 13 of Revelation. We went through it pretty good. I think it was a pretty good clip there. Real quick. I think you got the essence. So it's one of those things where we see the beast, and we see the beast coming up out of the sea. We see the second beast coming up, the false prophet coming up out of the earth. And this false prophet is a one who has power to deceive the world, the whole world, and he causes things, wondrous things, that people follow after the beast because of these things that he does, and he pushes people to the point of worshiping the beast, even to the point of receiving a mark on their hand or their forehead. And again, what that is a picture of possession. This is authority and possession over these people. And so what's happening is you see this mark that's on the hand, or the right hand, or the forehead, and if anybody takes this mark, it's the mark of man. It's the number of man. Let me put it that way. In verse 18, it says, "Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. So if you ever wondered what the number of man was, well, there you go. There it is. I don't know what that means. And again, what we talked about is we'll probably find that out towards the end. That'll start to become aware. You'll start to become aware of this, and you'll start to understand a little bit more. But a lot of people have speculated over time what this meant, as far as the little thing in your hand, or the little thing in your arm, or the barcode, or anything of that nature. Again, that's all speculation. We'll see that. Again, we'll see that, and we'll see in like in verse 17, no one will be able to buy or to sell except that the one that has this mark, right? And it says the name of the beast or the number of his name. So that's the number of his name, 666, and the name of the beast. So we'll know the name of the beast. They'll be getting the name or the mark or the number in order to buy or sell. Now, we go into chapter 14, and this is kind of like in contrast to what just happened in chapter 13. Chapter 14, you'll see three events, or three things that are taking place. It's one event, but I think you're seeing it from different, again, those different levels or different camera views, basically. So what you're seeing here is the coming of Christ, okay, and chapter 14. So chapter 14 starts out with, "Then I looked, and behold," there it is, the word, behold. Again, if you see that word, that means pay attention. Stop and pay attention to what's going on here. It says, "Then I looked, and behold, the Lamb," which is Jesus Christ, "was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads." Okay? Remember in chapter 13, we talked about the hand and the forehead of the beast, of the people who worship the beast. But what we see here is the 144,000 men that, remember what we go back to, let's see, chapter 7 of Revelation. Chapter 7 of Revelation, remember that there's four angels standing. This is the interlude, right? This is an interlude between the sixth seal and the seventh seal, all right? Remember what we talked about, this interlude, what it looked like? It was just basically an encouragement to the believers to let them know that they're going to be persecuted. They're going to die. They're going to the beast and the false prophet are going after them. And so, but before that happens, we talked about how God takes the Jews out during this 3.5 at this 3.5 year moment, right? There's a 7-year pact that takes place, and at this 3.5 year, the pact is broken by the Antichrist. He then becomes this crazy tyrant that just goes on a killing spree, trying to kill the Jews. The Jews in Jerusalem are led out into the wilderness, where they are saved by God. Remember, and the flood comes from the dragon's mouth and to kill the Jews. And we see that that the earth swallows up this flood. Again, is the flood water, or is it an army? I believe it's an army that the beast sends after them to kill them. But what happens is the earth opens up and swallows them whole, and they are in this wilderness, and God is protecting them there for 3.5 years. And again, so Satan, he can't have the Jews, right? He can't kill the Jews. So what does he do? He goes off and makes war with the saints, with those who hold to the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, before, remember we talked about this, before he takes the Jews off, he gathers up 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe. Okay, and that's in chapter 7. We see that the number is 144,000. We see that it's 12,000 from each tribe, and we see that these are special people. These are special people, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I want you to see in verse 1 of chapter 7, after this I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the 4 winds of the earth. That's judgment, right? These 4 angels that are holding back judgment before. Again, this is between the 6th seal and the 7th seal. 6th seal is, well, let's just go on. So you've got this interlude, and it's there. That interlude is there to encourage the believers. So what you have here is God pulling out these 144,000, and before judgment comes, before the judgment comes, before the winds are released, right? And it says here, and I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, having the seal of the living God. And he cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea. There it is. Now the 4 angels, the reason they're there is to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the bondservants of our God on their foreheads. The bondservants are the slaves, okay? The slaves of Christ. These are the first fruits, okay? The first fruits, and we'll talk a little bit more about them, but I want you to see this. And it says, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed from every tribe of the sons of Israel. From the tribe of Judah, 12,000, Reuben, 12,000, Gad, 12,000, Asher, 12,000, Naphtali, 12,000, Manasseh, 12,000, Simeon, 12,000, Levi, 12,000, Issachar, 12,000, tribe of Zebulun, 12,000, from the Joseph, 12,000, tribe of Benjamin, 12,000. These were sealed, okay? And then you don't hear anything, right? You don't hear anything until you get to this chapter 14. So now we get to see what's taking place. So go back to chapter 14, and it says, then I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Mount Zion, but right now, let's just keep going with the 144,000. And with him, 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. So there's the seal, Okay? That's what you see there. The seal of God, God's name written on their foreheads. And it says, "And I heard a voice from heaven, like the sound of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. And the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one could learn the song except the 144,000 who have been purchased from the earth." Okay, now I want you to, let's just kind of unpack this a little bit here. So what you're seeing is there's a song that comes from heaven. Okay, the 144,000 are not singing this song yet, but they're the only ones that can learn it. They're the only ones that can learn it. All right, that's what you got here. No one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. Now again, these 144,000 are bondservants. They're slaves to Christ. They serve him. They go everywhere he goes. They are the first fruits of man. I want you to think about that. They are the first fruits of man. Now let's go a little bit further and see what these people are, or what kind of people these people are, right? These are the ones who have not been defiled with women. So they're virgins, okay? For they have kept themselves chaste. So they're virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. So wherever Christ goes, the 144,000 are with him. And what I would say is Christ is the captain, right? You've got the captain, and he's got his men that follow around him. They're around him all the time. And he is the captain of heaven. He is our commander of heaven, right? And we've got this this group of men that follow him wherever he goes. They are his first fruits. They have been purchased. Now, how do you think they got purchased? Anyone want to take a stab at who purchased them? Christ. Exactly. When did he do it? At the cross, right? And how did he pay for it? With his blood. Very simple, right? So these people have been redeemed. They are believers. And they are virgin men, right? These have been purchased from among men, and here it is, as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. Okay? That's in verse 4. They have been purchased from among men as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. So that's important, right? That's important. You need to see that Christ has a group, the first fruits, following him everywhere he goes. Now, here's the thing. We get to come next, right? And what do? Well, we follow him everywhere he goes, right? So he's got his men that go with him everywhere he goes, and we'll be with him. He'll be our shepherd, our great shepherd, and he will lead us. He will lead his flock. He will feed us. He will take care of us. Everything that we need, he will give to us. It's an amazing shepherd, our good shepherd. You think about Psalm 23, right? Psalm 23, and you get to see how a good shepherd takes care of his sheep, right? Takes care of his sheep. He loves his sheep, and he takes care of them. In fact, he even lays down his life for his sheep. So that's the beauty of the good shepherd, is that he lays down his life for his sheep, and that's what Christ did for us. He laid down his life so that we could have life. All right? So we love to follow the good shepherd, right? And just imagine being one of these men, right? that get to be with Christ forever, following him wherever he goes, seeing everything that he does. I mean, that to me is worth it all, right? I mean, seriously. You think about it, that for eternity, these men will follow Jesus and be with Jesus everywhere he goes. And they will get to see great things. We will all get to see great things, right? We will all get to see great things. But here, you've got the captain and his men, right? Now, and it says here in verse 5, so they were purchased, their first fruits to God. And it says, no lie was found in their mouth. They are blameless. So you think about that God has set aside a people, a group of men for himself, right? And you think about when Elijah was running away from Jezebel, and he's moaning and groaning, and he's saying, I'm the only prophet. I'm going to be the only one. Oh my gosh, what was that? It's spread out, coming at me. So you've got this, this prophet who's saying, I'm the only one left. And he's moaning and bemoaning about it. And God says, calm down. He says, I have 7,000 that have not bent the knee to Baal. I've reserved for myself 7,000 that have not bent the knee to Baal. Now again, if God wants to do that, that's his prerogative. He can do that. He has a people for himself. And so what you see here is that he has raised up a people for himself that are virgins and blameless and speak the truth. Okay?
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Is that so that they can be like excluded for evil? Is there a reason that they have to be like almost perfect?
Well, when you think about first fruits in the Old Testament, what they did was they would bring their first fruits so they would go out into the harvest, right? And right about the time that everything was ripening, right at that right time, it's like it's all perfect, right? And it's beautiful and green and lush and everything, and the leaves are, and so it's a picture of that where what happens is they cut down the first fruits and they go and offer it up to God, and they to thank him for the crop, to praise him for the crop that he has given them. And so you're bringing those first fruits in. Now those first fruits would then be eaten by the Levites, the priest, and things like that. But again, everyone, because it was an agricultural society, everyone would bring in their first fruits and offer them up to God. And so what it was there's getting ready to be a harvest. Okay? There's getting ready to be a harvest, and you take the best of your crop. Or if you raise animals. So even if you raise animals, you take the best of your animals. And that's usually a young lamb without spot, without sickness, without illness, because that was a picture of sin, right? So you get this perfect lamb, right? And you go and you sacrifice this lamb to God for the crops and for the animals that you have received. Because he was constantly, you got to realize that with the Israelites, he was constantly giving them what they needed, right? You think about it, the temple, smoke, the sacrifices, all day, every day, smoke was rising, and people were bringing their sacrifices in the evening and in the morning. And they were bringing their sacrifices constantly, but it was God who was providing the sacrifice. See, even that, God has provided the sacrifice in Jesus Christ. He's provided the lamb that takes away the sins of the world. But what's happening here is you're bringing that in and you're praising God and thanking God for what he has done for you. And you're bringing in your best. So, again, this would be, as far as it's from chosen people, right? His chosen people, the 144,000. And at the same time, it's the best of men, right? These are the best of men, chaste, no lie, and they are redeemed. Okay, even the best men have to be redeemed. Even the best men have to. There has to be a sacrifice for them as well. So you see, no lie was found in their mouth. Verse 6, and we'll get down to verse 8, and we'll stop there. It says, "And I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven, having an eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people." Okay, now, actually, we won't get down there to 8. I kind of want to stop and go back, right? So we see who the 144,000 are, but I want you to see where they're at right now. Okay, let's go back to verse 1, and then we'll go through this, and then we'll conclude. Okay? Yes. Yes.
Yeah. The 144,000, is that people who are, like, let's say Christ comes back tomorrow? Is that the 144,000 that are living right now, or we're living throughout?
It's the 144,000 that he will choose in that time before judgment. Remember, because it says that before he brings judgment upon the earth, those angels are holding back the wind, and he tells them to stop until we seal these 144,000 men. And then once they seal those 144,000 men, then judgment comes, right? And so what you're seeing here is it's that time of right before judgment. Okay, so the 144,000 are future at the time of judgment. Okay, so where they're at right now. So it says in verse 1, "Then I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion." Now, we do have in Hebrews, if you go over a couple of books over to the left here, of course, that's the only way you can go. Hebrews chapter 12, in verse 22. So they're talking about Mount Sinai and Zion. Okay, the contrast between the two. Verse 18, it says, "For you have not come to a mountain that can be touched, and to a blazing fire, and to darkness and gloom and whirlwind." So again, when we go back to the Old Testament, and God came down to give them the 10 Commandments, he told them, don't come to this mountain, don't touch this mountain. You tell your people not to come to this mountain. They can stand around it, but don't come and touch it. Because if you touch it, you will die. That's how serious God is. And how we tend to kind of just nonchalantly, when it comes to God. But God is holy, holy, holy. And so he's telling them, don't come and touch this mountain. But here he's saying to the New Testament, the New Covenant, right? He's telling the New Covenant, you didn't come to that mountain. You didn't come to that mountain that you can't touch. All right? He says, you've come to a different mountain. As the New Covenant, under the New Covenant, you've come to a different mountain. It says here, "For you have not come to a mountain that can be touched, and to a blazing fire, and to darkness and gloom and whirlwind, and to the blast of a trumpet and the sound of words, which sound was such that those who heard begged that no further word be spoken to them." They were scared to death. And it says, "For they could not hear or bear the command, if even a beast touches the mountain, it will be stoned. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I am full of fear and trembling." So when God came on that mountain, even Moses himself was full of fear and trembling. He says, but, verse 22, "But you have come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of angels to the general assembly and church of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood, which speaks better than the blood of Abel. So what he's saying here is that you've come to a mountain of forgiveness. You've come to a mountain that blood was spilt so that you can come to that mountain, so that you can be in the presence of God. That's why Christ had to come, so that we could be in God's presence. Okay? Now, here's the thing. When it talks about Mount Zion here in Hebrews, it's talking about the heavenly Jerusalem, right? But that only happens, I think, twice. Most of the time, it's talking about a specific mountain that's going to rise up. It's already there. There is a Mount Zion, but it's going to rise up, right? And Jerusalem is going to be on it. The Temple Mount is going to be on it. But when Christ sets his foot on the Mount of Olives, there's going to be an earthquake, and Jerusalem is going to split in 3 different ways. Okay, we'll get to that. But I just want you to know that this is what's happening. He sets his foot, and what happens is there's a valley that is created. There's a great earthquake. There's a valley that's created, and Jerusalem, the earthly Jerusalem, is transformed. There's a rising up of a mountain, and that mountain is where God will reign, in Mount Zion. Okay? And we see that it's spoken of 162 times in the whole of the Bible. We see this in Psalm chapter 2. If you would, turn to Psalm chapter 2. And I want you to hear the end of time. I want you to hear it. But I want you to hear it in what David had proclaimed, the word of God. Why are the nations in an uproar, and the peoples devising a vain thing? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and his anointed, saying, that's Christ, the anointed, let us tear their fetters apart. Let's the binding that binds us. Let us cast those things away, their cords from us. He who sits in the heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he will speak to them in his anger and terrify them in his fury, saying, but as for me, I have installed my King, Jesus Christ, upon Zion, my holy mountain. I will surely tell of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. This is God saying this to Jesus. You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will surely give you the nations as your inheritance, the very ends of the earth as your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall shatter them like earthenware. Now therefore, O kings, show discernment. Take warning, O judges of the earth. Worship the Lord with reverence and rejoice with trembling. Do homage or kiss the Son. Do homage to the Son, that he not become angry and you perish in the way, for his wrath may soon be kindled. How blessed are all who take refuge in him. Okay? That is a picture of Jesus Christ in the Old Testament. Well, I want you to see one other thing. Go to Joel. Joel. You got Daniel, Hosea, and then Joel. Joel chapter 3. No, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to go there right now. Go down to 3:17. I'm not gonna steal my thunder. I'm gonna wait till next week, and that way we can talk more about it. It says, "Then you will know that I am the Lord." Okay, let's jump back up. The Lord roars from Zion. Okay, that's verse 16. "And utters his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth tremble. But the Lord is a refuge for his people, and a stronghold to the sons of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. So Jerusalem will be holy, and strangers will pass through it no more." So he's putting his foot down, and when he does, he creates a split 3 ways. And a valley starts from Mount Olives and goes on and splits this way, and Jerusalem, the Mount Zion rises up with Jerusalem on it, and he reigns from that place. Now, this is what you're seeing here is a picture, okay? When you go back to Revelation 14, you're going to see a picture here, because there, again, it's the same event, but there's 3 things that are happening in chapter 14. But it's the same event, and what you're seeing here is Christ stepping foot on this earth with his mighty men and all of us behind him. Okay? So we'll leave it there. Again, we'll go back. We'll go through it because there's a lot of verses I want to go through, but we'll go through this Mount Zion, and we'll talk more about it. But if you want to read a little bit ahead, you'll see that there's these angels that are flying around, and they're pronouncing judgment. They're pronouncing people to turn. They're pronouncing judgment, and then what you see here is that there's a harvest. Remember when I said there's a harvest coming, right? And you get to see the reaper. And all right, so we'll talk a little bit more about the reaper. Do you have any questions?
So were the 144,000 Jews then because of the different tribes, right?
Right. Yeah. His chosen people, and they're virgins without lie. So again, the first fruit of his people, of his children. No more questions? If not, I'll be milling around here. We'll be here all night. And so just come and talk to me, and we'll go ahead and close it out. Gracious God, we do thank you so much. We do thank you for your word. Again, I thank you that you are a God who is in control of all things. Even when we see the Antichrist and the false prophet and what they're doing as far as marking their people, Lord, you have a people marked for yourself and your chosen people. And Father, I thank you that you are sovereign, that you are gracious, that you are merciful. Even in time of judgment, you are calling for people to turn. So Father, again, I thank you that you are a merciful, compassionate God. So Lord, as we go our separate ways, I ask, Father, that you bless the people here for hearing your word, that you keep them safe. Father, that you bring them back Sunday with an eagerness to know more about who you are and to fellowship with one another and love one another. So Father, again, we thank you. We thank you for your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.